Hi, it's me, Patti Lee, and I'm here at the True Crime Grapevine podcast and YouTube channel to talk about all things true crime that happened this week. And if you're new, hello. And if you're returning, thank you. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell, all the YouTubey things. All right, so if you don't know, this is a true crime podcast that is me telling you about what all the YouTubers and newscasters and everybody online in the interwebs is saying about the most popular cases of the day. It is my interpretation, my opinion. It is lots of speculation. The reason it's called a grapevine is not only are we having some wine time with our grapevine, and our first case will be some Chardonnay, which I shall pour, but I'm just pouring out my opinions about what's going on. I'm not a lawyer. I am not a psychologist. Well, I'm an educational psychologist who has done all her doctoral work but did not write her dissertation, so I'm ABD. But I am not a criminal psychologist. This is just me telling you what everyone is saying, kind of gossip. What's out there on the grapevine? So, let's unpack all our cases. So, I have been doing this in flights. So, Chardonnay is our first flight, and that will go with our first case. Before I tell you all the flights we're going on, I'm going to just run down the cases today. So, we have got a new case out of New York, which I'm sure you will want to hear about. Ursula Gall, a 51-year-old mother, was found unalived. We'll tell you what. There's news about the Morphew case. We'll get into it. There is also a big update in the Lori Vallow Daybell case. And then we have updates related to Matthew Coleman, which I don't know if you remember us talking about before. Sherry Papini. There's Cassie Carly's killer, who's been extradited. We'll talk about him. Old Marcus, still being a pain in everybody's you-know-what. And a good update in the Caroline Gaddis case. Oh, and we have a little update about what's happening with the Petito civil case against the Laundrie family. All right, so, again, welcome to the Grapevine. Sit back. Relax. We're just going to get into it a little bit and talk about what everybody's saying. Give our 2 cents, little squeeze off the grapevine of what is the juiciest details, and let me know in the comments below if you like what you see, if you'd like something different, if you'd like to hear about a different case, whatever. All right? So, flight number 1. We have a nice Chardonnay here to go with our new case of Ursula Gall. Okay, so this past Friday night, early Saturday morning, Ursula was, at first, she was known to be going out, I guess, to Lincoln Center. She's in New York City area. She lives in Queens in a gated community outside of that area. Supposedly she was going with her girlfriends out to see a show. Now there's some scuttlebutt. Maybe she was going with a guy or meeting a guy after. But anyways, she was going out Friday night. By all accounts, she was seen by her neighbor Friday taking the dog out. She did make it, I guess, to the show. And she made it home around 11:30, they think. Then, sometime between 11:30 and 4:30, she was unalived in her basement, or somehow from going in the house and then taken into the basement. What was seen on surveillance camera at 4:30 was somebody walking down the street in a hooded sweatshirt with a big, huge, like, rolling bag behind the person. So, Saturday morning, around 7:30ish, I believe, someone in the neighborhood, about, I think it's almost half a mile away from the home of the Galls, or excuse me, her husband's name is Klein. From their home, about half a mile, in a sort of wooded area, a path, a walking path, but also near sort of, it was also a very busy street area. I think it was like Metropolitan and Forest Park streets, half a mile from their home. It was right near Jackie Robinson Parkway. So this big, like, walking path, but near a highway, and it was much traveled. Two individuals saw this bag, and so the thing was, it wasn't just like a big hockey bag sitting near the path. There was a blood path, like the roller wheels, and in some of the pictures you can see, like, basically they rolled, whoever it was rolled it to the edge, but you could see that there was blood in the path, and it went all the way to the house. So at first, after the police are alerted by first one and then a second caller, they're like, okay, something's out there. They check it out. They're like, holy crap. They followed the blood trail, literally a trail, all the way back to the house. Then they break into the house because it's like an emergency, right? Like, what is happening in there? So they break into this house Saturday morning. They find on the top floor, so it's like, it looks like a 1920s to 40s house, similar to the ones I'm in Ohio, like in Shaker Heights, or in Cleveland area, or in Toledo area, Ottawa Hills area, the Granville area, if you're around Columbus. Those older homes, but nice, and they said it's worth $2 million. This is near New York City and Queens, but it's a gated community, so a nice area. So this house has, it sounds like 3 floors. So on the upper floor, they find a 13-year-old boy sleeping, like, who's like, what the heck is going on, when the police break in, right? And they're like, hey, who's supposed to be here? And he's like, my dad and brother out of town, and I don't know where my mom is, I don't know where she is, but that's who was, like, at home with him. So they are putting together then this woman, who, the one guy who found it, he actually, I don't know if I saw blood, I don't know if I'd open up anything. I mean, I think I'd call the police and say there's something that looks suspicious that has blood coming out of it. I don't know, maybe because I like true crime. I'm always ready to find a body, and I don't really want to see, though, the grisly bits, especially inside of a bag. Hockey bags are big, but you might figure maybe things are not all together. But apparently she was all together, but just smushed in there. But because she had been unalived, the man thought at first it was a mannequin. So they knew it was a woman. So they go to this house, and the mom's missing. They put 2 to 2 together, and then they do an autopsy later. So it is this mother. And then, so there's, again, this has all been just over the weekend. I am recording this on Tuesday after the Lori Vallow arraignment. So it is about 4 o'clock on Tuesday, I was going to say April 19th. This new case of Ursula Gall. So Ursula was originally from Hungary. She met her husband, I believe, in Hungary. He was going to a business school maybe over there. She immigrated over here, had children. It seems like she was a stay-at-home mom the whole time. There isn't too much suspicious about her as a person. There were reports that she had been reported missing once, and that her older son, who was with the husband had been reported missing in the past, but like only for a few hours. So not really missing, although the husband had reported them both times missing, I believe. But otherwise, it seemed like she was, neighbors liked her. She was known in the neighborhood. She took lots of pictures all over social media with this little dog that she loved. So there wasn't anything that said why somebody might want to do this. It was reported that there was a text sent from her phone to her husband that said specifically something about, I don't know if I wrote down, you and your whole family are next. And I'm back. She put me in jail. No, I don't think she was a lawyer. And there's been no record that she was involved in litigation that put somebody in jail. So that, it doesn't really make sense. And our friends at Pretty Lies and Alibis mentioned, like, it seems like a really bad excuse, and it had to be somebody who knew her, because how could they get into her phone? And also it seems like there was no breaking and entering into the house. So it seems like she knew the person, or they knew how to get into the house. So at first everybody looked at the 13-year-old boy, and of course, since he was in the house and she was killed in the basement, they assumed, okay, maybe it's him. And the autopsy showed like 50 to 60 stab wounds, and said she died of like not just stabbing, but like also a horrible blunt force to the neck. So I don't know if she broke her neck as well. But with that weird text message, there's a number of things that we can look at. Again, so the 13-year-old initially, so the police, they get there, the 13-year-old's there, they find out that the husband and the older 17-year-old son are out of town, and they went to Portland, Oregon first, and it's not exactly clear what they were doing there, but then they were going to fly to Ann Arbor, Michigan to look at a college for the son. I don't know if they were looking at colleges on the West Coast. Regardless, they were far away when it occurred, so the police were like, well, husband out of town with the older son, other kids here. They get this video, and when you see the video, it's hard. Again, I don't know if you've seen like the January 6th video of the person who they think was carrying bombs that day, but when video is just people walking by from a surveillance camera from a building, it's really grainy. It's hard to tell perspective of how tall the person might be. I mean, all you can see is, like in this case, there's a person dragging what we now know to be the body in this big, huge bag. And the bag was from the house. So blaming the 13-year-old, initially they took him in for questioning. They did take him away in handcuffs, but then they dismissed him as they said, no, it's not him. I think it would be pretty clear if it was him. If you've followed any true crime, you know that when people stab people, they tend to, especially the autopsy was 50 or 60 stab wounds. The person stabbing, that's like an act of rage, right? And if you're doing that often, you're going to hit bone. The likely whatever you're using will slip and cut your own hand. There will be copious amounts of blood that is, we've all watched forensic shows, hard to get off. So this child was woken up around 8:30 in the morning, didn't have any signs that he was involved. So I think we can, you never can say never, but it looks like he is not at all involved. So what do we know about the family and the rest of the night? One weird thing that's being reported, again, if you've watched any of these crime shows, especially, we're just here talking right on the Grapevine, there's talk about like, oh, she was texting multiple men. Maybe, and then, oh, she was seen, it's been reported she was seen at a bar alone. Like, did she pick some guy up and bring her back? Who knows, A, if this is accurate information, and B, we don't know any of the evidence. This is all what reporters from different New York outlets are saying. They like, oh, our sources say, our unnamed sources say. So, again, All we know is that she was a mom. Now, she was a mom whose husband, I believe his name is Henry Klein. Okay, so he deals, his job is very interesting in that it's not a typical job. He works in New York City, they live in Queens, not that weird. He works at a boutique, what was it called? A boutique, which means, small, and specialized. Let me see what I wrote it as. A boutique, something like management. Management? It's like investing in lithium, specifically trading. So I looked up about lithium trading because lithium is often talked about because it's a chemical or mineral used in like electrical engines, voltage to make batteries, lithium batteries, right? So it's not something that's traded openly on the stock market, but it is traded through people like, I guess, the husband. So I'm not sure how cutthroat, not to be too like punny, lithium trade is, but it's not like a typical thing. And he works for a boutique trading firm, not like your typical Wall Street firm. So I don't know what kind of people he deals with in that trade. I don't know, because New York, it's full of wise guys, isn't it? From all different countries. Speaking of which, one of the things the husband did that was, I don't know if it was unusual or if he just felt it was in bad taste, but he deleted a tweet that when he landed in Portland, Oregon, he had tweeted at Bill Broward, who was an American businessman who had been a lawyer in Russia and had gotten not in trouble, but he was a lawyer for somebody that then Putin went after, and he has been an activist against the corruption in Russia. And the husband tweeted, like, would love to meet you, like something in support of the Russian sanctions, like he agreed with Bill Broward. Okay, so he works in New York City in some very specialized trading of energy type related elements, and he is, against, not against Russia, but he is obviously pro-sanctions for Russia. So I don't know, but I do know that if you're anti-Putin, sometimes you fall out of windows and stuff, and I don't know, it might not make you friends, more enemies maybe. I don't know anything about that, and I don't want to know anything about that, but I am just mentioning it because we're just here talking on the grapevine, right? This is just supposition and speculation for entertainment purposes only. But you tell me, that seems a little weird. I don't know. And then the text from her phone was sent to him about your family's next. It's a warning, right? But it sounds a little screwy. Like, she put me in jail. What? But your family's next. I don't know. Could it have been like a coded warning? Is that how he knew, like, I better shut my mouth, get rid of this tweet? I don't know. But it's just one more weird thing. Also, maybe in the past he reported, like, his wife missing when she was only gone for the house for, like, it was literally not even a whole day. And then they reported their son missing. And again, it wasn't like a long time period. So was this guy worried? Was he on edge? Was somebody threatening him? And now when he was out of town, somebody carried something out? I don't know. But I think we'll find out. There was a young lady on Twitter that I think you should follow if you're interested. She worked for NBC in New York, and she was tweeting some really good video. And I thought I wrote down her name for you guys. She was at NBC New York. If you go to Biggie's Twitter, at, I believe it's just Docket, he has retweeted her tweets about this. So there's just video of the police. They came back again Monday night, and they were looking all over the house. So they are seeing who was there. So this currently the theory is she came home around 11:30. It seems like they got, now because it's an older house, I imagine she came in the side door, like from the driveway. And usually in older homes, there's like a little, like you can go down the stairs into the basement, or you can go up the stairs or walk into the house through another door. I imagine, so it seems like they said she was attacked or first killed or stabbed or something, right? Like on that, as soon as she entered the house, it looks like, and then taken into the basement where everything else went further. So I'm just thinking, if you're going to hurt somebody, and maybe, you know, there's a kid sleeping on the top floor, you might take them into the basement because you're underground. And then also the person's reaction, for better language, you know, not to be too graphic, will not be heard by the outside world, because they did live in a neighborhood where there were houses on either side. So was this a hit? Was it a date gone bad? I don't know. The police do have her phone. And was her phone something where you could use, because people are like, well, how, they had to know her well enough to know how to get in her phone, which is like, maybe it was a 13-year-old, right? So here's the deal. A lot of people use their thumb. I think even if you've just been unalived, your thumb might still work on your screen for the person to send a message. I don't know. But we know with forensics and how phone analysis works, I'm pretty sure we're going to figure this out. So is this some sort of hit? Is this, gosh, was this arranged? Like the whole Morphew thing of I'm out of town, so it can't be me. And arranged for something else, a different, you know, was it something who wanted to get back at the husband and family? Was the husband arranging it? Was it a date gone bad? Was she messing around on the side and picked up somebody who was of a nefarious sort and it just got out of hand? We don't know. I think though that the text sent to the husband, I would watch that. Okay. We will obviously, I'm guessing, hear more about this case. It's sort of crazy. The lithium thing, the little, I don't know. It's got lots of twists and turns. I don't know what it is. But we're going to find out more. So, glasses up. We're at the end of our first flight. So, for our second flight of episode 9, we have our second case, our second flight, Lori Daybell. We've poured a little Pinot Grigio because it goes with things that are spicy, and Lori, as we know, is a spicy girl. All right, so Lori last week was declared competent. This week she is in court with her 2 new lawyers. Well, Archibald was her court-appointed lawyer when she was committed. But now he has brought on some co-counsel, and the court accepted the co-counsel, and so now she was arraigned today. So this is what it looked like. Apparently she came in with, if you know anything about Lori, she likes the color blue. She wore a beautiful blue, baby blue sweater, and she had on some green readers. Now, I don't know if you can tell, folks at home, but readers don't make you look the youngest. So, while Lori apparently did get her hair done in court, that would be hilarious. While Lori did get her hair done while she was committed, so it wasn't like, excuse me, it wasn't grown out and gray like we thought maybe. It is not the typical sunny, beachy waves of yore. No, it's kind of a dishwatery. It's still, I mean, she still has it's still blonder, like a dark blonde. I wouldn't say it's horribly attractive. I would guess that she used to get like fillers or Botox, something that has now been out of her system. So her face looks a little bit more like her mom's face, if you know anything about her mother. Which is not to say it's bad. I mean, they're pretty people. It's just she looks very different than what she looked before. So Lori came into court. She only said, I think 3 words, which was, "Yes, I do," in response to Judge Boyce asking her if she remembered like what she had agreed to before. Yes, I do. She did not enter her plea. And I don't think she has to. I guess it is somewhat normal for your attorneys to enter your plea. So they entered the plea of not guilty. Now, this is the juiciest part. She did not waive a speedy trial, which means she has to have a trial within 6 months. So her trial is set to begin October 19th, which is 3 days, which is to the day 3 years ago that Tammy Daybell died. Oh, and she doesn't want to be called Lori Vallow. She wants to be referred to as Lori Daybell. So the fact that her trial for murdering Tammy takes place on the date the deed was done is interesting, is it not? I don't know. I thought that was juicy. I don't think it was on purpose. We're going by 6 months, and today is the 19th, so that is 6 months away, October 19th. Now, what does that have to do with Chad Daybell? Their trials are bound together. They're joined, and the judge said they would not be severed, but previously the trial was set for January 9th in 2023. So I assume this must mean then Chad's case will also now be moved up. I don't know. Or is this a way that the lawyers are trying to get them to separate without getting the court to agree to it? Like, no, Lori says she's, constitutionally, you can only, you have your right to a speedy trial. And I am all for that. If I am ever charged, I would want a speedy trial. If you listen to Scott Rice, he will tell you, take the speedy trial route. Don't give the prosecution time to get their case together. So, will Chad's case remain joined, and will he then also begin on October 19th? We don't know. We will find out. There was also, so that happened this afternoon. So prior to that, in the morning, Chad Daybell had, by himself, had a hearing about the change of venue. And John Pryor, of course, argued, nope, we want it moved to Ada County. Too bad, so sad. No tap backs, basically, is what he was telling the judge. Like, I know you're talking about this again, but we really shouldn't. Stay with the original motion. We all move to Ada County. And the prosecution basically presented a bunch of data and figures about the cost differential. And Rachel Smith, who was the lawyer who was brought on as a specialist lawyer by Rob Wood, she made the suggestion that I have made in the past, which is, no, you definitely get the court pooled from Ada County, but bring them on buses, bus them back and forth. Hear me out. Why would that work? Well, how about this? You don't have to worry about sequestering the jury this way because it's like, it is long. It's 700 miles. So they have an extensive trip both ways. But if you showed them movies and gave them breakfast on the way, they'd get to the county to have the trial, to hear the day stuff. And then by evening, they would get their dinner and movies on the way home. And with all that travel, there's not a lot of time for them. They wouldn't be able to they wouldn't have Wi-Fi, so they couldn't get on social media. You're basically sequestering them without sequestering them because of that long ride. The only problem I see is that it's winter time, and I don't know. I think Idaho in the winter, that might be problematic traveling. Oh, but it won't be in winter anymore. It'll be October. So I don't know if they get snow. So actually, this might work out even better for the busing thing. So we will find out what that, I mean, so she argued for that option. We'll see, will they put people, if they're going to put people up, will they put them in, up in the county that they're being charged in, but the people will come from Ada County, or will the whole thing move to Boise, Idaho? And then you have the people, everybody involved in the court, which that is what they're arguing. It's very difficult to move a whole court because the court people are also involved in other dealings in their county. Again, 700, I think it's 740 miles away. So I say get some big, fancy travel buses. I'm with Rachel Smith on this one. That way you have people from a county where they're not intimately involved in what's been going on in Rexburg, but you sort of have them sequestered. And it's sort of like the best compromise, I think. We will find out more. So we don't have any ruling about the change of venue yet. We will find out. So the other thing about the Daybell Vallow case, if you watch Hidden True Crime, which I am a big fan of, they had a live with It's a Crime Linda, or Linda from It's a Crime. I said that backwards. Again, dyslexic detective. Anyway, if you know anything about Linda, she is similar to me in that she is a regular person who's interested in true crime, but unlike me, who's just telling you what everybody else is saying and sort of like we're just gossiping, she goes down into patterns. She will not just research what is being said about the case each week, but I mean, she goes and finds out incredible detail about the people involved and different aspects of a case. So she's been looking at both the Barry Morphew, but also the Daybell case. And she found some interesting things. One of the things that she found was a connection, and she and Lauren Mathis, who is the host of Hidden True Crime, they were talking about a painting, and I am close to the actual painting because it's at the Detroit Institute of Art. It is by a man named Benjamin West, and it's called Death on a Pale Horse. And in this painting, if you look right in the middle, there is a person holding somebody who is dead, and right next to them is it looks like a demon or a zombie, like somebody who also looks dead but like evil, like over the person who has just died. The reason this is of interest is Joseph Smith, the founder of the Mormon religion, looked upon that painting. He said wherever he was, it was in his reading room where he was staying for 3 days, and he felt inspired by this painting. And I guess there's a controversial, and I'm not speaking of anything for Mormons because I'm not Mormon, and I am just, again, this is just me repeating what I heard. That was some juicy stories on the grapevine. But Lauren and Linda talked about this white horse prophecy. So if you're familiar with Revelations and Armageddon, and there will be these the 4 horsemen, and the white horse is death. So it kind of is that, but the prophecy, I believe, was created by Joseph Smith or followers of Joseph Smith, and it's controversial. It's not something that is any more accepted by the Mormon faith, and they made clear to emphasize that. But Linda was just making some connections between this prophecy of the apocalypse coming, and also there was a political connection that had something to say about somehow Joseph Smith felt that the Constitution would be threatened, and the Mormons, he didn't call them the Mormons, he called them the Latter-day Saints, would be the people to protect them. This has to do with this white horse prophecy. And also, and it merges with ideas mixing with the John Birch Society, which I don't know if you know this, but like very libertarian, very anti-big government, anti-federal government, anti-paying taxes. And if you remember, Lori Vallow's dad was in trouble for not paying taxes. So many people on the very far edges of right-wing religious groups sometimes merge these libertarian beliefs with religion, and somehow believing, which is, I'm not going to even get into the whole thing about, I am sorry, but the framers historically were not like deep Christians. They were more theists. And you can argue that. We can argue that some other day. This is not a theology show, but I'm just saying it is very interesting how different that the United States really was founded on freedom of religion for the individual, and that we would have no overall religion, because our founders had seen, like in Germany, in France, in they had seen hundreds years war. It was all fought over religious differences. I mean, England was fighting over the difference just between, which doesn't seem like a big deal to me, but between Catholicism and Protestantism. I mean, it's still a form, they're both Christian, right? But it was literally life or death and burning people as heretics. So our founders were like, hey, you practice what you want. That's the freedom. Somehow it's gotten morphed into people thinking that it's ultra Christian, and that somehow, I don't know, somehow it means that they don't pay taxes. I don't really get how the libertarian has merged, but apparently this ain't new. It seems like the more you learn about anything, it's been around before. So what Linda had been delving into and exploring was this connection between this sort of white horse prophecy that has to do with the apocalypse and a constitutional crisis, and somehow the Latter-day Saints doing it. And it seems to also merge with the idea of, do you remember the tent cities, and there'd be a call out. This is not mainstream Mormonism, none of this. This is all very fringe, but it sort of mixes with this also mystical religious idea of being called to be the ones, the special ones, right? Everybody special and different. Anyways, and it was interesting that she pulled in this, that Joseph Smith had actually sort of gotten this sort of prophecy idea from this old painting. It was from the 1800s. This painting by Benjamin West called Death on a Pale Horse, and that it had a zombie-like figure involved. Obviously, it was the zombies that sort of what Linda was seeing as, oh, so where did they get the zombie thing from? Because it seems so out of, like, that has nothing to do with anything in Mormonism, or like, it's so weird, magical stuff. But really, it has to do more with old-fashioned, very rudimentary fundamentalist stuff that was spoken about long ago. And it kind of was this like magical idea of what we could do and how we were the ones. So Linda is making that connection, and I kind of dig it, and it kind of makes sense to me that they feel that whatever they need to do, that they are saving people, because remember, that is their whole ideology was that the person was taken over by a demon, which in that painting you would see that, like, you know, they didn't want them to become the evil zombie, that thing that could get into the dead person, that the only way to save them was, you know, to end the person's life so their soul could be transported, and then the zombie would have nowhere to go. The zombie would be outside of them, like the painting. So, I don't know. What do you think? Leave me a comment below if you think that Linda is onto something. I don't know. She makes interesting connections, and she's not saying that this is the truth or she's right. She's just looking at things and noticing what's alike and what could be happening. I don't know. I think that's really interesting about what motivated these people, because we don't want to just study them because it's like some sick sort of fascination of like, can you believe they did this, but also to understand and to help in case we notice anybody sort of going over the edge and you know, becoming any sort of extremist, leading them to believe that they need to hurt other people to save the world. I mean, unfortunately, last week we talked about blood atonement, and while that is nothing that is any more practiced, the idea that you can atone for your sins through hurting yourself is a very old idea, and we don't want people to do that, obviously, hurt themselves or others to atone. It seems very old-fashioned, but yet people still in these sort of cult-like behaviors fall into this. So it just seems important to notice and to listen for if you hear that going on. So Flight 2 is going to land. I'm going to end it here. Just know that there's going to be a trial October 19th, apparently. And we're going to see if Chad's date will be changed to join Lori's and what's next. So it's all very interesting. So here's to a speedy trial. And for those people who hurt other people, to be accounted for that and to do their time. All right, and we'll find out which way the trial is going to be. If it's going to happen in Boise, if it's going to happen in closer to Rexburg in that county, if the jury will be traveling or not. Very interesting. All right, that's it for Flight 2. Hi, true crime friends. This is Flight 3 of Episode 9 of the True Crime Grapevine. We're going to be pairing, this flight is going to be pairing the Barry Morphew case with some Sauvignon Blanc. I don't know what Sauvignon means, but I know Blanc means white. And this is about Barry, and he's about as white as they can be, so let's raise a glass to Barry Morphew. Ooh, clean, refreshing. Probably how Barry feels today. So why would Barry feel everything's clean and refreshing, like he has a fresh start today? Well, today, April 19th, Tuesday, Linda Stanley, the DA in Chaffee County, wrote a motion to dismiss the charges against Barry Morphew. Now, some people are feeling heated about this. True crime friends, let me just tell you the tea. People are not happy. How is Suzanne gonna get justice, right? Well, I think who we should be raising a glass to is Linda Stanley and the team at the CBI and Chaffee County. Why? Why, you ask? Because doesn't this seem like they're admitting defeat? Well, I enjoyed that more than I thought. That's a good one. Just like Linda, I think, is refreshing and a good one too. Why do I think that? Okay, well, if you listen to last week's Barrymore Few Flight, you might have heard me say I think it would be a good idea if they dismissed this right now before the jury's picked, before it goes to trial, because I thought maybe then, they could get their act together more. And let me just say something. If you are harmed you move out to a beautiful part of Colorado because you are tired of the rat race near Chicago or around Minneapolis or, Norfolk, Virginia, or someplace in, Florida. You just want to see beautiful mountains and not to have a million cars. You just want to be in what they call God's country, right? You just want to be out in Salida. One of the things people don't think about is that with that beauty and austere, contemplative, sort of bubonic area, also comes, you don't get the experience of homicide detectives of New York or Chicago or even a city like Denver. You don't get experienced detectives who are used to, in the first case we talked about this week, like in New York, anywhere around New York City. In Colorado, you get people who shoot animals probably they're not supposed to. Maybe an altercation between neighbors over ranching rights, or, speeders, or occasional, drinking and driving, and I'm sure vandalism, and I'm sure there's some drug addiction and all the ills of society, but it is not constant violence like you might have in some larger metropolitan areas. It just isn't, and that's why you move there. So it seems disingenuous of some people on the YouTubes, some people who I think are involved in the court system in the state of Colorado, who should know better than to make disparaging and, dare I say, defamatory remarks that they can't prove. I would really watch it if I were anybody who was in a position where ethically, let's say I was involved in the law, and I had to be careful about having conflicts of interest and maybe shooting off my mouth about and defaming other people involved in cases. I don't think I would do that. I just don't. So if you're watching the YouTubes, there is a certain lawyer who actually I like a lot for getting the defense perspective. But getting a defense perspective does not mean going over the line and start to make disparaging, and I think close to the line of defamation, to defame, to libel, to slander somebody, saying that they are purposefully, they're acting with malice. Like, I would watch myself. I'm just saying, especially if I were friendly and known to have friendly ties to one side over the other, I would not want to run into any sort of problems with my bar and my law license to be, acting in an unprofessional manner. So, what we know, and if you listen to the Crime Talk with Scott Reich, he had a very interesting Monday night program where he talked about that today they were having a readiness trial in the Morphew case, and that he really felt, and he's made no mistakes about hey, he thinks that the charges are not going to stand up. He felt like he did not respect what the charges were, the way they were written. But there were also some admonishments made towards the DA who brought the case about throwing off an investigator because the investigator didn't go along with the case. Like acting in a way like, you don't agree with me, instead of listening to you, I'm going to throw you off. I, in the past, have spoken about this. It's a real thorn in my side, because I believe what was stated was there was a rogue investigator speaking without letting his team know, speaking to the defense, like on the sly, giving them insider information, which I think that would be enough to get anybody thrown off the case. If you're somehow sneaking over and talking to the defense, not being deposed, but doing it sort of on the sly, that's what I understood to have happened. And I'm just saying that Scott Reich was correct. I think that the case was not as strong as it could be, and that it just wasn't, and that there had been mistakes made. There seems to be some implication that mistakes were made, sort of like, I don't care what the judge says. You can't tell me what to do. I'm going to listen to this rule and not you, judge. I really, no offense, back to the beginning of this, I see Chaffee County as a beautiful place with a dedicated district attorney and a dedicated police force, and that CBI is dedicated investigative force, and that they're just not having murders every day and week like New York City, like Suffolk County, or I believe that's the county in Long Island, Manhattan area. Like, they're just not seeing the volume, so they don't get the experience. So I do think Scott was right that the case was not strong, and that's why I suggested last week, you know what, you should probably dismiss and then refile when there is more evidence, and when you can, you've learned from your mistakes. Like, they just didn't have it together. I don't think it was out of malice or narcissism was thrown around. I don't think anybody's narcissistic or being malicious. I really think that it's difficult when you're new at something and have some inexperience to get up to speed really fast. And the defense had an excellent team. Excellent. Iris Eaton, Drew. They're from Denver. They are excellent defense lawyers. I would hire them if I was in. I mean, that's who you'd hire. Bulldogs. Somebody who would go after and find, even if you look guilty of sin, yeah, but they're going to make sure you are protected. That's what defense lawyers do. So I think both sides did what they were supposed to do, and I think Linda Stanley was smart in realizing, look, we need a little bit more, and the motion to dismiss hinted, there's like this little Easter egg, which is funny because it was just Easter. They think they know where Suzanne's remains might be, but because it is Colorado and it's still frozen, there's 5 feet of snow right now, they can't do any more work, and they haven't been able to for a while, and they need to basically cut Barry loose. And they admitted it. I think if someone's like a narcissist, they have blinders on as to they can never be wrong, and they're going to get the job done no matter what, them against the world. And I see Linda Stanley as being very open and honest, and sort of like, look, Judge, we made a mistake. So the judge, Judge Ramsey Lama said, yeah. Okay. So Barry Morphy was released, and I am not sure how bond works. I think he's returned. He put up $500,000. I think he gets $500,000 back. So, and he goes on with his life. Now, he does have suits against, speaking of, no offense, speaking of narcissism, he's suing everybody on the Linda Stanley, the CBI, they're all out to get him, and they need to pay. I am not sure how that's going to go down, but I think it's I would not like to be accused of something I didn't do, but we still have the problem of Barry's team argued in legal filings, so I believe this is his legal stance now, and he's committed to it, that his wife is missing, and she's presumed maybe dead, but she's just missing. So, his lawyers last week made a big grand stand about this is not a no-body homicide, this is a missing person. I do not know who Barry's insurance company is, who paid off the debts, the insurance for Suzanne. And I'm not sure about how he got everything she owns and sold it. But that seems like insurance fraud. Because to do that, he had to say, I believe my wife is dead. So I don't know. He's got a lot of poker still in the fire here. He's going after people who said, we think maybe you hurt your wife, because they had evidence that they thought circumstantial. But they didn't just target him and go after him and be like, we're going to get you no matter what. I don't know how, nobody likes to be thought of as a suspect, right? But I'm not sure how you can sue everybody, especially when, on one hand, you're benefiting financially and you claimed legally and wrote in documents, she's, 6 months after she was gone, she is dead, I want to sell things, goodbye, see you later, sayonara, sorry honey, goodbye. And then, in her murder trial, stand up and go, hey, she ain't dead. I don't know what made you think that. Otherwise, the fact that he signed legal documents admitting. So that's weird and legally not good for him. Again, this is the True Crime Grapevine, people. I'm just here. We're on our third flight. I'm just pointing out, hey, congratulations. Barry is out of jail right now. And no monitor, and got his money back. Now, the only thing before we land this flight I'd like to say is it was without prejudice, because if the prosecutor moves to dismiss charges before a jury has been sat, before there's a jury impaneled, meaning you've picked the jury, they've all raised their hand, I promise, to abide by the law, blah, 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 so help me God. That's allowed. But they did put that they want it dismissed without prejudice. Now, in civil cases, apparently that's more often used, a term with prejudiced or not prejudiced. If it's dismissed with prejudice, you mean you can't ever file that again. If it's not with no prejudice, that means you can refile. So Barry is breathing a sigh of relief, but Linda Stanley's still looking for Suzanne and has an idea where she was buried. And maybe Linda Stanley has been listening to my friend Linda from It's a Crime. And Linda talking about the triangle, and she's got some pattern of burying things. Go look up Linda's series about Barry Morphew, especially about Barry burying things and the triangle theory she has. I think she's onto something. Linda, It's a Crime. I'm a big fan of all the Lindas, but especially you from It's a Crime. All right, so that's it for Barry Morphew right now. Unless we hear more, he's a free man. Congratulations, Barry. We'll see how long it lasts. Flight 3 landed. Hi, True Crime fans. This is episode 9 of the True Crime Grapevine. It's me, Patti Lee, a dyslexic detective, and we are on our 4th flight. We're going to be talking about the Matthew Coleman case. 4th flight, we've got a little rosé. So let's pour one out. And we might need a little bit more than the regular because this one involves conspiracy, religion, right-wing, QAnon stuff. Not that different from what we were talking about. It might remind you a little bit of the Daybell Vallow case. Yeah, so, another reason to avoid religion and politics, right? Poor Matthew Coleman. Well, poor Matthew Coleman's children, and especially the wife that is still alive, Abby Coleman. In this past August, you may remember, and maybe you haven't heard it, it was called like the Surfer Dad trial. People magazine has actually been the one who's been keeping up the most with this in a more timely manner, I would say, although Rolling Stone magazine, big fan of Rolling Stone with true crime. I don't know what's going on at Rolling Stone, but I'm going to have to get a subscription because they are really on the ball when it comes to true crime. And they have covered this case early and continuously, but most recently People magazine had some updates. The trial is coming up in May. Matthew Coleman was a father who was a Christian surfing instructor who lived in Santa Monica area. He had a surf school. He had a wife, Abby, and 2 really beautiful children, a 2-year-old son and a 10-month-old daughter. Well, last August 7th, they were packing up, the whole family, Abby and Matthew were packing up the kids to go someplace, and Matthew was in the van. There was only one car seat in it, I think, at the time. Abby was still in the house, and all of a sudden he peels off and leaves, and she's like, what is happening? And they did text a little bit, but within 2 days he had gone over the border into over the Tijuana, like through Tijuana border into Mexico, a little ways in, and the next day got up very early and went to a field and used a spear gun to basically sacrifice his children. Left them there, got back in the van, and was headed back. Now he was, right away, he was captured. His wife had let authorities know that he was gone with the children, but that she didn't believe he would harm them. And he did text her when they were staying at the hotel, I believe, and said, his texts were very strange. Maybe not to her, but if a person reads them, referring to, he's been thinking more about what they talked about. It was about a conspiracy about religion, and he was seeing signs, and he was making sense of things, and she kind of was like, oh, okay, well, whatever you need to do, but I love you, and he's like, yeah. He spoke about a Bible they had, and maybe she needed to destroy one, which is kind of an odd thing to say to somebody about destroying Bibles, especially if they're a devout Christian, which he was prior to this. Anyway, the most recent data. Well, so I think as things get closer to trial, we get more things released. And so there was a search. I believe it was a search. It was an FBI document that was released that showed what he had been talking about right after he was arrested, how he explained what he did. And he discussed with the FBI agents that he felt that perhaps his wife was a shapeshifter. She had serpent blood, serpent DNA that she had passed on to the children, and that the children would grow up to destroy the world. And he sort of felt like he was making these connections within the last 5 or 6 days. He had started to notice hand signals that were being made in pictures of his friends and family, and that he felt that designated them. They were trying to appear good, but they were really evil, and he felt he was maybe the one last true man left on earth, that everybody else had been overtaken and was like shapeshifters and serpents. And he explained to the FBI that that this was, he had been reading a QAnon theory and Illuminati conspiracies, and that he really felt that he knew Q was talking to him. So this whole thing bespeaks of a problem. Instead of being in a like cult like the Daybells, where they started a cult with people, like a group that everybody was in connection with in real life, he was developing this cult-like theory from reading just the internet. And we know that there was like military grade psych ops for years by being perpetrated on the American public through the internet of foreign countries to try to weaken the United States and create division. And one of these theories is this QAnon theory, and it has been associated with the right-wing ideals of somehow Donald Trump was saving the world from what do we call them? The people who hurt children. I don't want to get YouTube flag me, but you know, starts with it starts with a P. Now, this theory, this QAnon, I believe there exists enough information now that it can be tied back to certain groups. And it is made up. It is pretend. It wasn't. I mean, a conspiracy means two people have a secret about something. A conspiracy theory tends to indicate something that people believe that is wackadoodle. But then there are conspiracy theories that people make up to control other people, and that starts moving into like a cult-like brainwashing, manipulation, psychological manipulation. And it is unfortunate, but it appears that this Matthew Coleman was somehow looking for something, that he fell down into this hole. And one of the latest articles last week was that his wife also believed in the QAnon theories, but she didn't believe, obviously, that she had DNA and that she was a shapeshifter, but she did share his belief in this QAnon theory. So they were feeding off one another, at least with that theory. And this is important to note, because cult, psychological conspiracy theories, these cult theories use messages of you are special. Only you understand. Like, you can save the world. Sound familiar with the Daybells? Sound familiar with this idea of that this man held? He was the one true person. He was but that is in common with many cults. They are special. They are different. That's why everybody hates them. Because, it's them against the world, because they are the good ones who are meant to save the world. Again, learning to recognize these things in what we read online too, not just like in other people saying, oh, that, can't you tell that person's crazy? I'm just saying, again, this is the Grapevine. This is my speculation only for entertainment purposes of true crime. But really, people, we need to also reflect on ourselves when we're reading something online, when it's not attributed to a direct source, but it sounds like it's making connections for us. You have to look for, is there any evidence? Like, evidence meaning somebody has said something, like in a pleading document. It has been said evidentiarily. Like, in legal documents, where typically you're not allowed to lie. Again, though, in a cult, they tell you, but police lie, but your church lies, your parents lie, your family lies. See, and then evidence goes out the window, because you can't critically think if you assume there is no such thing as truth. And that might sound familiar too. There is no truth. There's only Q, or something like that, right? When you hear stuff like there is no truth, there is no evidence, that should be a warning sign flashing at you. So, yeah. Somehow he got convinced that his wife had DNA serpent DNA, and that his children were going to grow up and be like these serpent people, and he needed to kill them to save the world. That is some wackadoodle, dangerous thinking, and it was all found online using his belief in both God and in this idea that the government was lying to him, and they're doing all these secret things. There's a cabal. The only cabals there are people who want more money, more sex, more power. Yeah, those people exist, but we see them. Because what do they want? Less rules, less regulations, more money, more power from big industry. I mean, that stuff is easy to see. But this idea of secret religious stuff and aliens. When you start hearing about aliens and witches and magic and spells, please. Harry Potter world is fabulous. I love the idea of it, but it isn't reality. That's not reality. So this poor man, and I do think he's a poor man, but he has to stay in jail. I don't know why he's not incompetent, because this is all crazy, right? But he's being held at an undisclosed federal institution because he went over, he killed American citizens, but in Mexico, so that made it a federal case. So he's at a federal prison, probably in Florence, I would assume, the Max prison in Florence, Colorado, I believe that is. And yeah, he has no bond. He will go on trial May 19th, and we will hear more about it. I also wanted to bring it up because not only is it similar to the cults, we're going to save the world, therefore it's okay if we kill people idea, like the Daybells, connects with that. Also connects with a similar case that was reported from Minnesota on this past March 21st. A man named Patrick Morris Simmons stabbed his on-again, off-again girlfriend for 10 years. She was a mother of 3. I wasn't clear if the children were his or not. They were off again, I guess. Went to her workplace. When she came out, stabbed her, threw accelerant, like gasoline, on her, burned her, because, she's a witch. And, not just a witch, he believed that he had to stand up because babies were being killed and sacrificed with witchcraft. Again, folding all this sort of paranoid conspiracy about someone's after babies. They're always hurting babies, which is always, even the guy who killed his own babies thought, had something to do with babies. And witches and evil and, burn the witches, really? I will not be surprised if when that comes to trial that we also hear about his social media and what he was into. 100% believe it will be some very deep conspiratorial QAnon weird. For some reason in the QAnon world, maybe because it's also associated with very right-wing world, women are all to blame. They tempt us. They're temptresses. This is way back into the 1500s. Women are temptresses. They associate with the devil. That it's stuff you hear on the History Channel and go, oh, well, people believe that because they didn't understand science. I don't know, is it because we're getting rid of science? Nobody wants science, nobody wants math, burn all the books? I don't know. But we have people burning people as witches again. And serpent DNA. This stuff has got to stop. Turn off your computers. Oh wait, you would be watching me on the computer. Anyway, True Crime Grapevine listeners, that's my juicy story about conspiratorial crazy stuff that has led to the death of women and children being witches and DNA serpents. May 19th, we will hear more. We're going to land that crazy flight. We're going to keep our rosé for the next flight. All right, True Crime Grapevine fans, we are on to flight 5. This is going to be a flight of catch-ups. We've got some catch-ups on 3 cases. We have the Cassie Carly update. We have a quick update on the Petito Schmidt civil case against the Laundries. And we have a quick closing of the Sherry Papini case. So, let's get into it. Cassie Carly, as you remember, was the mother of Sailor, who, it was a new case 2 weeks ago on my episode 7, and quickly it was found she was, missing from a custody drop-off. Her child also was not dropped off. The child was found with the father who was supposed to be dropping her off and instead took her back with him to a work job. Even though he lived in Panama City, he was going up to work in Alabama and near Birmingham. He said he didn't know where Cassie was. There had been some weird text messages that didn't seem to make sense, that seemed to indicate maybe she had gone with him. And then he said no, he let her off in Destin to go to a friend's house who no longer lived there, so that wasn't true. And then he was like, I don't know. And then when they started looking at him more closely, and he actually had a ticket in Alabama so they could take him in for missing court, he took off and was on the run, and then they caught him in Tennessee and had to extradite him. So that's where we left off last week. This week, he has successfully, as of Sunday, been extradited from Tennessee to Florida. And he did not fight that extradition, so, that looked good, right? Well, as soon as he got to Florida, he became his old Marcus self. Marcus, I can't say his last name, Spinavella, I don't know, Marcus the Narcissist, let's just call him that. Again, this is the True Crime Grapevine. I am just telling you my impression of the gossip out on the YouTubes. And let me just tell you, there is gossip to be said about Marcus the Narcissist. He's smirking in his mugshot in Florida as if he's not there because he, unalived his girlfriend and mother of his, ex-girlfriend and mother of his 4-year-old daughter. No, he's smiling. Now, he was brought back for destruction of evidence, lying to the police, obstructing justice, and then after he was booked and his mugshot taken and everything, they wanted his DNA, and he refused to give his DNA. Now, true crime fans, we know that, especially he's in custody, they'll get his DNA, they'll get a warrant for it. That is not a problem. He's just slowing things down on purpose because Marcus is a narcissist. In my opinion, that's just my speculation. I don't think there's been any specific diagnosis made on him by any mental health providers, as far as I know. He has a bond of $21,000, but he also has that outstanding not showing up for court charge in Alabama, so they're holding him anyway, so that doesn't really matter. He's also indigent. And if you remember from last week, we found out a lot of this stuff, a lot of his issues were precipitated by Cassie had to take him to court related to child custody, getting like payments for her care. And he just didn't want to pay. He didn't want anything it seemed like he wanted more to do with the child to annoy Cassie than really he didn't want to be a good parent. And that's just my opinion. But again, maybe not a narcissist as much as maybe he has the dark triad, which makes, maybe he's a, malignant narcissist, verging on, like a sociopath. I don't know. He just has that weird blank, like, sort of like he doesn't care about what's going on with anybody sort of sociopathic look. Anyways, I'm not an abnormal psych major. I can't diagnose sociopathy or sociopathy, but if I could, I might. So we're going to find out more about Marcus. He will have further, we're going to see him. He's not going anywhere. And Sailor is with her grandfather, with her mother's family, and is being taken care of. And her aunt, Ray, has reported, like they're keeping everything, her schedule the same, keeping her life normal. God bless them. All right. The next update is about the Petito Schmidt case against the Laundries. It's a civil case, and it involves there was infliction of undue pain and what is it called? Pain and suffering type of case. The first filing didn't have specific, I believe it was case standing, like what specific legal responsibility had to be named that the Laundries held that they violated and thus caused the Petitos the suffering and pain and suffering. Hopefully there is a way to describe it. Emily D. Baker and other lawyers, Scott Reich, have spoken about the difficulty in civil cases of pain and suffering, because in this case it doesn't, there's not a clear responsibility, legal responsibility that the Laundries owed the Petitos or Schmidts, because Gabby was an adult. Now Gabby was living with them, and I don't know if there's any legal responsibility for the head of household to alert anybody if someone is knowingly murdered, knowingly missing, suspected missing or hurt somewhere. I mean, it's Florida, so it seems like Florida has very loose laws about anything, unfortunately. It's very deregulated. It's very whatever. But the judge did allow amending the complaint. So hopefully there is some legal responsibility that the Petitos can describe. I hope so. It seems to me that it should, that while they didn't have to be responsible for what their son did, them not letting a family know that they were aware of where their daughter was, likely, that to me seems like that they had some responsibility since the girl lived with them. I don't know. And because they then held her property. They were in possession of her vehicle, but they wouldn't say anything about where she was. Maybe something about being in possession of her vehicle put them in some sort of responsibility to let them know where she was. I don't know. I hope that's something. And then our last little update here is about the Sherry Papini case. Sherry Papini, so flashing back to the Morphew case where they're like, well, she's just missing. People don't stay missing very long. Sherry Papini was like gone girl for 22 days, and then she showed up, and even after she showed up, she had a pretty good story. It fell apart, and it's taken since that happened in 2016. she's pleaded guilty. I mean, there was enough evidence that they found. It took that long, but she now has, as of Monday, pled guilty to faking her own kidnapping, and she's going to make restitution, $300,000 restitution, to pay back for all the money spent on looking for her, to pay back the police for searching for her, and us, and for searching for the Hispanic ladies. She's lucky she wasn't charged with a hate crime, because pinning it on a minority is beyond the pale. She appeared before William B. Shrub, the district judge there, entered her guilty plea. She answered a few questions. She did not make any statements afterwards, and she's scheduled to be sentenced on July 11th. So, don't do the crime if you can't do the time, and she's probably going to do some time. They are asking for 8 months. Now, one of her charges, because she accepted money fraudulently from the victims fund, that she's going to pay that back too, but that's mail fraud, and that has a sentence up to 20 years. It appears they're only asking for 8 months in jail. She has small kids still, so. Anyways, she obviously has problems with, she seems to be a habitual liar and wants a lot of attention, and there was a lot of talk about she had this sort of behavior since she was a kid. So hopefully she gets some help and she pays back all that money. All right. Those are the updates. We have one quick more flight, and then we'll be finished for this episode. All right, true crime fans, we have one more flight, and we have a nice Moscato to pour out because it's celebratory. Celebratory, why, you ask? Well, let me tell you. Caroline Gaddis, who I talked about last week, being a 39-year-old mental health counselor working in Galveston, Texas, she was found on April 11th. She was found. Now, we don't really have a whole backstory here, but she was found alive and well. So let's drink to that one. Ooh, I like a sweet Moscato. She was found alive and well at a gas station in just east of Nashville. Now, it was reported that a police officer stopped in. I'm not going to say it was for donuts or whatever. But anyways, he stepped into the convenience store, and the clerk said something about this woman had been there since the night before, and he recognized that she was met the description of the APB out for this Caroline Gaddis from Texas. So, what happened? We don't know. Her family just says, they would like privacy and that she's fine. We don't know what happened. Did someone abduct her and drive her to Tennessee and then let her out? We don't know. So I'm just going to make a hypothesis. I think that somebody did abduct her and drive her there, probably hurt her somewhere along the way, and then she was left at that gas station. That's going to be my guess. I don't know if we're going to hear. I mean, I guess if someone's charged, it doesn't seem like she was the type just to take off. And what was she doing in Tennessee from Texas? And what was she doing meantime? We don't know. All right, so that's the end of that flight. We will see you next week. I upload every Tuesday. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you later.